Get yourself comfortable, move the mic around wherever you like. Just make sure you're speaking into the microphone even when you start to turn and answer other questions. So go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
It'll need to be just a little louder than that. We got it that time, but there you go. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Jorde.
Thank you. Sir, please state your name.
My name is Dillion Baines.
And Mr. Baines, you're related to Delmar Baines, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's land targeted by Summit in this matter that is currently held by Delmar's Revocable Living Trust, is that right?
That's correct.
And you have an interest in that ground in question?
I do.
And is Delmar your father?
Yes.
And did you and your father, on behalf of the trust and yourselves, cause to be filed, pre-filed written testimony in this matter, along with various attachments such as tile lines and aerial maps and yield maps relative to your properties?
That's correct.
And sir, if we were to walk through all of those same questions, other than correcting maybe any typographical errors, would your responses and answers be substantially the same today?
Yes, they would.
And there are 3 parcels that are in question that you filed testimony about, is that right?
Yes.
And do you have any material changes or updates that you believe are important to talk about before we get into your property more generally?
None that I have right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So with that, I would offer landowner exhibits 132 through 138.
Are there objections?
To the extent that that's just the pre-filed direct testimony and simultaneously filed exhibits, we have no objections.
That's correct. It's the pre-filed testimony and attachments 1 through 27 inclusive.
Thank you. Seeing no objections, the board will admit, give the way to Mr. Jorde.
Yes, thank you. Sir, I don't know if you've been here for very much of this or listening in, but now I'm going to turn you over to questions from the other folks, okay? All right, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Baines, I'm Wally Taylor. I represent the Sierra Club. And maybe I missed it, but what county is this in?
Dickinson County.
Can we bring up the KMZ map? Does this map accurately show your 3 parcels?
Yes, it does.
And they make kind of an L shape. And the pipeline route is that diagonal white line. Is that where you understand the Summit proposes to put the pipeline?
I do.
Okay. Had there been some question in your mind as you went along as to where the pipeline would actually be?
A little bit. It's kind of unclear to me and my father because we kind of don't understand this a little bit to our extent. But like for future building, like I had plans to build my house out there so I can continue the legacy. But then I can't do that in proximity of that because I don't want to get that close to that. I really don't.
Where did you want to build your house?
It was kind of up in the air yet. We had a couple possibilities of down on this corner or this corner. We were thinking about building my house. And then there's other corners too that we were talking about, but we just haven't decided. And this is kind of taking any option that I have to move forward.
How serious were your plans to build a house? In other words, had you actually decided to do it, or was it just kind of a hope in your mind?
It's kind of a hope.
Okay.
Right now we were in talks with EPS buildings and trying to get a layout and what we want and kind of go from there. And it's kind of still up in the air yet, but I mean, I want to.
Yeah. But you had taken steps to get some house plans and that
Yes,
kind of
I
thing?
have.
Okay. There are some structures, it looks like, south west of your property and then immediately to the south, are those residences?
So this is our neighbor here.
This is just to the south of your south parcel.
That'd be Harold Mag, and he's directly right across the street from that.
Okay. And then the one to the west?
The one to the west.
To the west of your parcel? Yes.
This one is my dad's farm.
Okay. And does your dad live there?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Had you talked to any agents or representatives from Summit about this project and about the route through your property?
They spoke more to my father, but then they've contacted me because he is giving them my number to call me. And I always tell them, hey, I have to confer with my father before any decision gets made and so forth. And they were kind of adamant and kind of pushing the issue, trying to get me to say yes.
Okay. When you say they were adamant and pushing, can you be more descriptive of what they were doing?
Oh, they're like the eminent domain, trying to like, hey, this money's not going to be here forever. Kind of threw that out there. And that was kind of the extent of that. And I kind of hung up on him, called my dad and talked to him.
Did they mention eminent domain?
Yes, they did.
In what context?
Like it was kind of like they were going to force it onto me and my father.
Did you suggest to them, or have you suggested to anybody some possible reroutes?
That was all my father, so he would have to answer that question because I haven't been privy to that part yet.
Okay. So you have no idea what he and the agents discussed about possible reroutes?
Not on the reroutes part.
Okay. How far would the nearest emergency response personnel be if there were a rupture in the pipeline?
About like 15 minutes.
Where would that be from?
Either Spear Lake or Superior. I'm not sure. Superior has a fire department still, but it'd be roughly about the same. About 15 minutes either way, so it's kind of in between.
Are there any possible reroutes that you would suggest?
None that I can think of. I haven't seen the actual whole route of the pipeline, just the section that it's going through my father's.
Okay. And your father didn't tell you anything about his conversations with the land agents?
A little bit, but he didn't really get into too much detail.
Okay. How many times did the land agents contact you?
Me personally,
Yeah.
twice. And then I think they've contacted my dad a few times on top of that, so that I've heard of.
How did you first learn that the pipeline was being routed through your property?
Dad called me and filled me in and let me know what's going on.
Did you go to the informational meeting? Do you know what I mean by that? That there was an informational meeting right after you would have gotten the initial notification of the project?
I think I missed that one because on top of that, I do have a full-time job that I cannot just up and leave at a dime's notice. I have to work to pay my bills just like everyone else. So,
yeah. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Coles?
Good morning, Mr. Baines. Sorry. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. You said you had a couple of contacts with the land agents yourself. Did they at any time mention any of the hazard and risk of the pipeline on your land?
Nope, just that they wanted to, hey, we'll give you this dollar amount. for the parcel, and then that was it.
So you had to do that investigation yourself?
Yeah, from the brochures my dad got from the meeting. He brought them home with him, and I read over them.
Has your father tried to get any liability insurance?
He has talked to the insurance companies, and they said there's too much liability in having this pipeline go through, that they basically wouldn't cover us.
So basically the responsibility could fall upon your father and the liability.
Yes.
Are there tile fields on these parcels?
Yes, there is.
Is there any pattern tile or what kind? Can you bring up the TMZ map, please?
I'm not sure. Most of that question would have to relate to my father, because he knows most about what's going on out there than I do.
Are there any easements on the property? Because I see development.
I'm not sure.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Jorde, for redirect.
Yep, thank you, sir. What I neglected to say, and my apologies at the outset, was that you Dylan, were talking mainly on the future land use, your interactions with Summit, and then kind of the longevity of the project, correct?
Yes.
And then your dad, part of the testimony, your dad was going to talk about or be able to talk about any of the other issues such as rerouting, etc. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I don't have any more questions for you, but I'm going to have your dad come up and just fill that in on the other issues. Okay. Perfect. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Baines.
So I would call Delmar Baines to finish that off.